everyone, hello to the annual Jimquisition Awards. Yutta. I'm James Stephanie Sterling. We have a cavalcade of video games, 5 video games to give year-end honours to. How exciting! Last year we sort of didn't do proper Jimquisition Awards because I didn't really play any games that completely wowed me that year, and the industry honestly didn't deserve it. Never really does deserve it. But we're here this year with some sincere, genuine, bona fide, honest to God Jimquisition Awards. It's better than the Game Awards because we don't make one insincere offhand comment one year about how we won't tolerate abuse while failing to mention that an Activision executive is on our board, and we continue to promote the works of Ubisoft. Plus, you know, I'm better dressed than Jeff Keighley. Time for our first award! Elden Ring, I choose you! Now Justin, this is really fucking expensive, so I'm not gonna throw it. So what I need you to do is implement your production wizardry to make it look as if, using CGI, I'm throwing this Pokeball replica. So yeah, I trust you completely with that. For our first award, Elden Ring, I choose you! When From Software revealed it was taking its trademark Soulsborne formula to an open world, cynicism was an understandably common response. After all, the market is packed with games that never should have been open world sandboxes, with far too many publishers demanding massive environments from developers who don't have enough content to put in them. The last thing we need is another vast, lifeless space populated by bandit camps and radio towers. So it's a damn bloody relief that Elden Ring turned out to quite distinctly not to be such formulaic, nebulous shit trash. What makes Elden Ring's world so compelling is just how dense it is. For a game that, true to From Software's style, takes place in a dying, decaying realm, its setting of the lands between still feels more populated, more lived in, more rich in background than any of its sandboxy contemporaries. Exploration always yields results, and significant ones at that, whether it's the discovery of a discreetly hidden dungeon full of hours of gameplay in its own right, or a massive boss encounter that you could quite easily play the whole game through and never see. There's so much to do, and all of it quite adept at providing a satisfying challenge. So few games now make you feel like you're truly discovering a place, and Elden Ring does it constantly. This is a game that, no kidding, has a secret area with its own secret area hiding another secret area. The optional content alone is enough for several video games, demonstrating that it truly isn't the size of the world that counts, but what you put in it. Elden Ring does wonders with its formula. That's what it does. It's not just the sheer volume of content, it's the consistent quality. While there's a lot of open space, there are locations as intricately mapped and complex in design as anything in Dark Souls. The wealth of weapons, items, magic spells, and abilities allow for a flexibility in playstyle unseen in any other Souls-like, all of which can be employed against a brilliant menagerie of creatures up to and including gigantic lobsters. Yes, it's a lobster, not a fucking crayfish. Just a landmark title, visually indulgent, thematically engrossing, intimidating when it needs to be, and elating in its rewards. What's that? Miniature Fantasy Commander Starling? Oh, that's right, it's time for another award! Pokemon Legends Arceus, I choose you! Pokemon Legends Arceus represents everything the Pokemon series has desperately needed to improve its archaic and increasingly exhausting formula for years, which makes it such a shame Game Freak walked back a whole load of it in less than a year with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Taking more than a few cues from Monster Hunter and set in the distant past because of some time fuckery bullshit, Arceus is broken up into several explorable locales stuffed with Pokemon that are caught not so much via tedious endless battling, but simply by tossing balls at them, in a system similar to the Let's Go games, but far quicker, more efficient, and to the point. That last note is what importantly sets this game apart from all other Pokemon experiences. It's to the fucking point. No endless litany of text boxes explaining in laborious, repetitive detail what happens every single time you pick a fucking item up off the ground. You just pick something up, and it's added to your inventory with a small note displayed on screen. You can learn moves and evolve Pokemon at your leisure without the game constantly ripping your attention away to deal with whatever it wants you to deal with in that moment. It's a game that puts convenience and comfort first, far away and above the usual waffle and tedium that was fine 20 years ago, but has turned the mainline Pokemon games into more and more of a tiresome slog. Look, I like Pokemon, but Jesus Christ, does Arceus contain so many quality of life improvements? It highlights just how lacking in quality the average Pokemon life has been. I love how it makes catching Pokemon, and lots of them, a fast, fun, almost hypnotic way to while away the hours. Despite itself being repetitive, it's just swift and satisfying enough to not matter, while the varied Pokédex challenges associated with collecting and cataloguing multiple creatures of the same species gives you plenty of incentive. Also, despite the gatekeepers whining about it, I loved how much easier it was to see and grab shiny Pokemon. Just the little noise and visual flair alone made it so much more accessible. It's a real shame that the Pokemon franchise has a real fucking problem with accessibility, something that's been made evident in several Pokemon games before. At least for one brief moment before the rushed sequels took over, accessibility, convenience, and people with other shit to do in their lives was something Pokemon cared about. Pokemon Legends Arceus still is, as far as I'm concerned, exactly what the Pokemon series should be. But seriously, it's time for another award. Franken RPG, I choose you! A game that might not be on many lists due to making only a light splash compared to so many other 2022 releases, Franken is a teeny little game available on itch that I almost forgot myself. I mean, I really forgot it. I was racking my brains with only 4 Game Awards chosen until I remembered this one at pretty much the last minute. Shame on me, for Franken is just bloody lovely, really. It takes only an hour to beat, being a bite-sized parody of turn-based role-playing games with a dorky sense of humour. Its story starts silly and only gets less sensible from there, with an ending that's just... It's just... yeah. It's hard not to compare Franken's meme-friendly gags and genre-based pastiche to Undertale. In fact, many might confuse it for a forgery. But despite the inescapable association, it nonetheless stands as a worthy game for fans of nonsense. Although Franken's humour is very upfront and delightfully absurd, the more subtle goofs are the best, such as the quasi-scorpion character model that's been recoloured and used to represent anything even vaguely bug-related. Just neat, light-hearted jabs at RPG tropes without a drop of malice, clearly coming from a place of love. The music is shamelessly cribbed from other media and employed to perfect comic effect. I pretty much lost my shit when I heard the Blake 7 theme blaring out at me. No game capable of ambushing me with Blake 7 could be anything other than worthy of at least a golf clap, but Franken goes further than that. With its brief runtime and gameplay so guided it's practically scripted, Franken is just as much exhibition piece as game, an extended joke that just so happens to be filled with smaller punchlines. It works, however, because it doesn't outstay its welcome, he's looking at you high on life, and it's just so darn bloody cute. I respect the hell out of that.
You control their appearance, but no force in the universe can contain the power and the fury of Rock Lord.
Shaking, quaking, crashing, breaking, Rock Lord, powerful living rock.
Oh shit, we're on. What was it? Evil West? Yes, why not? I choose you! It might not be the highest quality game I've played this year, but just for being a big dumb silly action game of a flavour we don't see enough of anymore, Evil West absolutely has to get the tip of the hat. It's been compared to the middle shelf shooters of the Xbox 360 generation, as well as the classically ridiculous PS2 game Gungrave, and I'd say the comparisons are both apt and an understatement. For you see, Evil West is the best kind of throwback, one that carries the style and feel of older games with enough modern concession to stop it being dated. It's a game in which you pummel monsters into juicy chunks across the Wild West, primarily via the means of a big metal gauntlet that feels heavy as fuck and perfectly satisfying with every smashing impact. While melee combat is surprisingly emphasised, cowboy vampire hunter Jesse Rentier also has plenty of ranged weapons, nicely mapped to specific controls and governed by cooldowns rather than ammo counts to ensure players never stop being able to kill something. That's what I respect most about Evil West. From its immediately accessible combat options to its linear design and regular opportunities for murder, Evil West is all about funneling you into constant action. It's not the most polished game, it's not the most refined or complex, and it has some weird difficulty spikes, but it is a ton of rewarding fun that's even more enjoyable the second time around via New Game Plus. By the time you've unlocked the ability to make enemies explode by uppercutting them into other enemies and upgraded your dynamite so it creates electric whirlwinds, any of the more frustrating elements are more than made up for. I could have put a better game up for an award, but I couldn't have put up a more honest, direct, and exquisitely ridiculous one. Well, we've had a lot of forced fun this evening, but it's time for our final award, one that wouldn't be controversial on anybody else's award show but this one. Because of course, I mean like literally of course, no matter what personal ties one might have, of course, Vampire Survivors, I choose you! Ha! Genuinely good though. Ow. Proper wood. Ow. Yes, I wrote for Vampire Survivors. I wrote a lot for Vampire Survivors, crafting its entire base game bestiary as well as stage descriptions, and I may well not be done writing for it yet. Does that make me biased toward the game? Sure, how could it not? Does it make my inclusion of it on my yearly awards show suspicious? I don't know. It's the biggest indie game of the year with an unprecedented level of positive Steam reviews near universal critical acclaim, and is already featured on dozens of year-end honours across the entire scope of games media. If I'm biased, if my award is suspect, it sure as shit ain't gonna take away from the fact that Vampire Survivors is overwhelmingly beloved, and will, for many people, be their easy Game of the Year pick. Long before I was brought on as the game's lorekeeper, it had already beaten out Elden Ring as my most played and loved game of 2022. It's just that brilliant. The concept is simple and not even wholly unique to the game, but the execution is utterly fucking sublime. A reverse bullet hell, something like a clicker game that paradoxically offers less and more interactivity at once. You pick a character and manually move them around an endless map while they automatically attack the waves of enemies that swarm in from off-screen over a period of 30 minutes. As you level up, you acquire new weapons and upgrades from random selections, starting each run with a single paltry attack and eventually becoming a walking beacon of death, with builds that throw out so many projectiles and effects-laden damage that the screen becomes a near blinding tempest of explosive colour. As basic as the sprite artwork is, the sheer amount of visual chaos can get so ridiculous that your computer may struggle to keep up, and attempts to livestream it are frustrated by its ability to completely nosedive the bitrate. Constantly rewarding, full of unlockable characters and items, incredibly easy to play, and almost insidiously adept at using audio-visual feedback to create instant gratification, Vampire Survivors has quite rightly been called a dopamine factory. It's like playing a slot machine that won't steal your money, but will give you all the flashing lights and happy noises you need to keep you thoroughly hooked. I haven't played a game as much as I've played Vampire Survivors. I haven't been so engrossed, felt so satisfied, and gotten so compelled to find every item and discover every secret. Not for a long time, anyway. So much to play, so much potential to replay it, so many hours sunk into it, and all that for $5 bloody. Honestly, some might consider it unethical to give a game I worked on an award, but you know what? It'd be unethical to deny it, because I sure as shit ain't gonna lie, Vampire Survivors is absolutely my favourite game of the year. Bestia is pretty good too.
Do you want me to be ready to couch for the outro bit?
No.
Just like done,
No.
done, and then
No.
couch? No?
No.
No.
This stays in my hand. This costs some money. Not as much as that Godzilla 1998 movie pinball table I got. But that was fine, I got it with my Vampire Survivors money. Hang on, hello everyone! Haha, which it's been good, hasn't it? Hasn't it? So there we go, 5 video games that I probably liked. I mean, they're fine. What video game is good these days anyway? Who cares? Besides which, it's not like most of you even give that much of a shit about this week's video. Because next week is the sweetest plum, isn't it, you ravenous hounds? You know what's coming. I know what's coming. And 10 very shitty video games know what's coming. Well, not all of them though. Obviously, you know, the people who made Sonic Frontiers know they're going to be on the list. And Gilson B. Pontus, of course, knows he's going to be on the list. And whoever cobbled the fuck together the last Aura crew, they know they're going to be on the list. But the rest of it is going to be a surprise. Babylon's Fall, of course, is going to be on the list. We'll see you next week for the top 10 shittiest games of 2022. Enjoy your Christmas, that's all from me, as you celebrate the birth of the baby Jesus, who is definitely real. Don't forget to thank God for me as well. Love you. Mwah. Bye.